always be.
But here's the
And the
thing.
proof is
Sorry,
that-
what's your name? My name is Zeeshan.
Martin, nice to meet you.
Martin, nice to meet you. So I guess the issue with both sides, the issue with that is Palestinians were living in a land.
Right.
Then a declaration gets brought up that, you know what, this isn't your land anymore, you have to move here, you have to go there, and this and that. They think this is our land. So it's not about both land, it's about occupied and occupier. That's the side of the Palestinians, that's the side that we see. That you have a land. You know, whoever had it, you know, this many years ago before, but who's living on there? Like, who's there? So that's where it's starting from. Then the Balfour gets involved. Then there's a Balfour Declaration because it's under the British consulate or whatever it is. Then they get involved, and then it kind of snowballs. And the Nakba happens with the 700,000 kind of moving, and you know the 500 villages and this and that. That's that's pretty clear cut from that kind of aspect. And then when certain. You got these accords and that, Yasser Arafat and this and that, certain things get drawn up, but yet settlements are being built in and this is happening and that's happening, and that's not being reversed by the people that are assisting Israel, like the United States. Anytime something happens, things get vetoed and this and that, and no one's being held to account. Then Martin, unfortunately, people then say, you know what, if no one's helping us, and you got certain Arab countries saying, you know what, nothing's going to happen, and having this defeatist attitude, then people start taking laws and things into their own hands. I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but unfortunately that's where we are at the moment. I mean, from your kind of understanding, where do you see things going from somebody that's lived in Israel, somebody that's seen it? It'll be interesting.
So obviously, clear out, I feel very emotional about the whole the October 7th massacre, right? I understand your point of view that you're saying comes from an oppressed sense, something that the people there felt they had to do something out. I can understand that basis. However, obviously, in an emotional
that wasn't referring to October 7th, by the way. That was referring to the about 70 plus issue that Palestine has had with Israel.
I'm saying, but in regard to what's happened, obviously the recent flare-up and the recent
that's
tensions.
the thing that's been popularized.
Correct. So emotionally, obviously, I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing how I feel, because obviously it's very tough. I'm Jewish. I'm from Israel. It's horrible in my vision, and I think from a basis of
just like the killings of Palestinians are emotional for me as well. Yeah.
Truly, if there are innocent people in Gaza, I do feel bad for those people who are genuinely they don't wish to harm to the Jewish people. I genuinely feel bad. Being carpet bombs, in a sense, right? It's strategic, but the Israelis they know that they're hitting civilians. They know, but they calculate it. The Israelis are not.
When I hear carpet bombing,
they're not
of civilians.
In a certain sense, they're not. Sorry, I misspoke with carpet.
No, because it's true. There are pictures showing like land before and after, and it's just zero.
Right.
And that, you have to be a human being, and that rips my heart to shreds.
Absolutely. If I was a person living in Gaza and saw my house got destroyed, I'd be horrified. I mean, as well as family, I'm talking about everything. However, there comes a point where we're in this situation. This is why there's no issue. We know openly that Hamas hides behind civilians. We know that they spend time with the civilians. It's well documented. You can see the Hamas fighters walk through the streets. It's very, very tough. I'm not saying they're right, I'm not saying they're wrong, because it's not for me to say. But at the end of the day, the solution is not simple to just say, well, we're not going to do anything, or we're going to carpet bomb. It's not. There's no. What would you say is the line in between that, where there's a?
I'll tell you, Martin.
Okay.
I'll tell you.
Acceptable.
So let's just say you have a terrorist in a building. Let's just say a hospital.
Okay.
Or let's just say an area or whatnot.
Just a regular building,
Yeah. What I would say is that still doesn't excuse you to start firing at the building where you have innocent civilians inside it. It calls for a strategic response. You need feet on the ground. You need people to go in. There needs to be a strategic kind of invasion. And like sometimes people find that very difficult to understand in Palestine. Yeah, but let's just say there was a synagogue. I've used this example. Synagogue in Israel. There happens to be a Hamas there, but you've got, worshippers there and stuff like this. Would you destroy the whole synagogue? Would you start firing? Of course not. You would opt to get another strategy, and that strategy would not be, oh, Hamas is there, therefore, we can do that. There's ample military, and the Israeli military is not something that's just started yesterday. It's a very very experienced, very powerful military. For it to be using this excuse, I think is a bit of a cop-out.
I hear your point. However, I think that's incorrect in the sense that, let's say they were to go in, right? There would be far more soldiers lost from the Israeli side, right? Obviously, because it is dangerous. It is, obviously hazardous to go in because they're much more vulnerable to Hamas terrorists coming up or out of their tunnels or buildings, whatever. It's obviously a lot more dangerous for them to go in. Now, what that means basically is that we're valuing Gazan civilians over Israeli military, right? Now, is that correct? Is that not? It's not for me to say, but from an Israeli standpoint, you can see how they're weighing up the options, right? By the way, before all this, but remember, Hamas have chosen to keep the civilians next to them. It's not like they just happen to be there. It's clear cut that they choose to be in those areas. Which, by the way, and I can understand, if I was going up against the Israeli military, I would also want some sort of defense. Is it wrong? 100%. To understand why they do it, it's very smart of them. Is it a brutal thing to do? Yes, absolutely. And we can't be. I think the Israeli military can't be put in a situation where they're saying, it's kind of like a lose-lose situation, because either they don't attack, or they're condemned for killing, innocent
What do you think of the example that I gave?
Of going in?
No, let's just say there was a synagogue in Israel.
Yes.
Where it was filled with Israeli civilians, and there was Hamas there.
Yeah.
What strategy would be used?
They would go in.
What if there was a Hamas tunnel underneath, etc.
Right. And the reason they would go in for that is because they are valuing the Israeli civilians greater than the Israeli military, or they're willing to risk it for that level. However, when it comes to the Gazan civilians, naturally there's less of a care. I'm not going to lie. I do believe that Israel, I'm not going to say likes. Hold on. I'm not going to say likes Gaza civilians, but they don't mind. They've given them the Gaza Strip. I know that there's people say it's the open air prison. There's more to discuss on that. But the fact is, they have, allowed it. Israel's doesn't want to bomb.
You've made a
Gaza.
good point. That's why I want to just address that before we go on. And that's the problem, Martin. Because Israel will value its own people over the Gazan civilians, that's now going to cause more people to join with Hamas. That's why this boogeyman of Hamas is not going to disappear. In fact, you're going to create more and more and more with this current strategy. It's just not going to work. You see?
Let me get to that in 1 second.
Sure.
I'm just going to add to the fact of the Gaza civilians is that not only are they saying we don't value the Israeli military to Gaza, because why should they? In a sense, no, is that not? It's not.
No, because
they're not Gaza.
You should, because if you have responsibility of a certain area,
100%.
Then if you can't value the civilians, with all due respect,
valuing
tell somebody else to.
Obviously,
you know what I mean?
You need to have a proper form of government. However, the threat that Hamas poses to the Israeli civilians, as we clearly have seen, is greater than the responsibility felt by Israel on those Gaza civilians, especially when those same terrorists are holding them as a form of a shield. So it stacks up, and it's no one likes it. There's no innocent.
But Martin, that's the excuse that terrorists give when they extracting vengeance and revenge. They say, the ends justify the means. In other words.
Okay.
So and that's the problem. Where terrorists will say, we want to protect our own. We want to achieve our objective. We want to do this by any means necessary.
Right.
And that's where the issue comes in, and that's why we need an objective source. Because if for example, Israel is going to go in and it's going to prioritize its own people, who's prioritizing Palestinians?
Right.
Palestinians will have to prioritize Palestinians, and then that's where things will start getting messy unless there is like an objective kind of measure. For example, international courts and this and that, UN resolutions, which don't necessarily get taken seriously.
I will say on this that there is, I'm not so familiar with all the research in the back. I mean, there's many, if you spoke to most Jewish people, they would say that there is Hamas are using this for weapons and that for weapons, and any aid that goes straight to Hamas. Very possibly true. I'm not sure. I can't speak on it because I can't know. Many people will tell you that, they obviously were voted in, Hamas, as the principal government there.
Long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago. But they were voted in, and people will say that's their choice to take things. I don't hold on that so much because I don't know the information. I'm not well versed in it, so I can't argue on that. However, I would push long term for something which is an actual government that actually makes sense. Now, I would really hesitate to say that's possible because it's extremely tough. Like you say, there's been a lot of bloodshed. There's been a lot of hatred. I've been there. It's inbuilt. I'm, as a foreigner, I can't say that I haven't been to Israel. I've felt the hatred. The friction. I wouldn't say hatred. The friction between the Jewish and the Palestinian. A lot of love as well. I've seen a lot of Palestinians getting along, a lot of Arabs getting along with Jewish people. There's a lot of good things. However, there is that inbuilt tension that goes back for years.
Don't conflate the two, yeah? So you've got Arabs and Israelis, then you've got Muslims and the Jews.
Okay.
So Muslims and the Jews, that transcends Israel. That transcends the whole kind of Israeli conflict.
Okay.
Yeah? Because Muslims and the Jews, that's when you start going into scripture, and there's ample evidence to suggest that the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians were living harmoniously together. Yeah? And one of the wives of the Prophet, peace be upon him, she used to be a Jew as well. And the thing is, you've got Maimonides, and you're probably familiar with these. So Muslims and the Jews, that's something that gets brought into the conflict.
Okay.
And a lot of Jews have an issue with that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you can enlighten me about your position. But from somebody that's been keeping an eye on what's been going on, a lot of Jews are saying, look, this is not a Jewish Arab, Jewish Muslim issue. This is an issue to do with settler colonialism. This is an issue to do with land. This is what it's to do with. When it comes to Jews and Muslims, like Karen Armstrong says in her book, Muslims didn't have any issues with the Jews, neither did the Jews with the Muslims. It's only when the whole Palestinian-Israel thing kicked off, that's when the whole, issues with regards to how can we get the other side and this and that, had to kind of be brought in. And there were that, I haven't looked too much into it, there were that scrolls, the scrolls of Zion, or those the anti-Semitic scrolls. Then they started going viral or whatnot. So the thing is that this is something that gets brought in, and many Jews, and I've met them and had the chance to kind of friends of mine as well. They're like, you know what, we're actually pro-Palestine. So the thing is that you can be a Jew and you can be pro-Palestine, but when it's kind of seen as, look, when both are kind of conflated, religion is conflated with land, with cultures and ethnicities, I think that's a category mistake. Some may argue that they are merged, and that's an argument that continues to be had. But a Jew can be against the state of Israel and still be a Jew, and a Jew can be pro the state of Israel, just like a Muslim can have their opinion about Palestine, and a Muslim can have their opinion against Palestine. It's not going to affect their faith. But then that's the thing, when a state leader then comes, and I'm sure you have a problem with the current ruling government of Israel anyway, but Netanyahu, when he comes on and quotes the Amalekites, and the verse with regards to the first Samuel is kill the men, women, kids, babies, etc., that riles people up more and more. When you've got people like this, and then you've got, we're gonna, these people are human animals and this and that. You've got people, that are supposed to be, calling for order and, control and this and that, and they're calling for that, and that's not helping the situation. That's exacerbating the situation. It's making the situation worse. And the reason why I wanted to make this situation about the Jews is because obviously there's anti-Semitism taking place, there's Islamophobia taking place, and that's something that has to be condemned. That has to be something that has to be clarified, because there are certain people that will see a Muslim person dressed in a certain way and attack them. There will be people that will see a person dressed, like a Jewish person use Orthodox Jewish garb, the skull cap and etc. They will attack them. So that's the sort of stuff that we have to make clear that not every Jew is pro or
There's a-
this
there's
or
a
that. Yeah.
No, I do hear
yeah,
that. And with your cause, so what the government is bringing in the Jewish equation is
Yeah.
because a lot of that is political maneuver. It is
Yeah.
a political maneuver. And do I agree with it? Do I not agree with it? It's debatable. I think it's more to
Do you think religion should be brought into the discussion?
well, it's 100% synonymous with the discussion. Should it be representative of the whole Jewish population? I don't think so. No. But it's definitely a big part of. I mean, it's always a big part of the story because what is Israel without the Jewish ideology behind it? The whole basis. Why is Israel in the Middle East? We can make Israel in the US. The whole point is that there's a Jewish belief that land is ours, right? That's the basis of the state of Israel. I will say that there is a large community of Jewish people who hold that.
But that land is not ours.
No. So this is actually a common misconception. This is actually quite interesting. I've seen a lot of videos of Jewish people saying, I support pro-Palestine. And a lot of Palestinians will use this as a statement saying, Palestinians, even Jews are on our side in this point. I would say that 98% of those people are a certain sect of Hasidic Jews, they're Orthodox extremists. They believe, there's a belief in Judaism that we have to enter exile for a third time. And the only way that Messiah comes is through this exile. Now, if we have a state of Israel in the exile, I don't know the exact details, but it says that we can't have a state of Israel in this time, in some way, and therefore they are calling for the abolishment of Zionism and the state of Israel, because they believe that without the state of Israel, we will achieve the Messiah, which is the ultimate aim, sooner. So there's actually two sects. There's a very famous. Right?
I thought the guy got bottled.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking. That's the way he was making the noise.
Yeah. There's a very strong Hasidic movement in Stamford by Tottenham. They actually hold, it's called Satmar, they actually hold that you shouldn't travel to Israel. They don't like the state of Israel. They don't hold the state of Israel.
Do you think they're extremists?
They are extremists in my opinion, but extremists, it's all on the spectrum. So it's all they have their beliefs. The Messiah is not coming until until the state of Israel is not abolished. However, everyone believes that every Jew, by nature, believes that that's our land.
Can you be a Jew whilst being an atheist? Because I've met some.
In my opinion, no. I mean, that's the basis of being Jewish. Technically, you can be a Jew because the status of Jewish, what requires you to be Jewish is the way you're born. If your mother is Jewish, then technically you are Jewish.
Okay.
That's how it works in Jewish law. But you can't, quote unquote, be Jewish without belief in God. In my sense, I want to say Orthodox, but I mean practice Judaism. But so that sect that you see are people who call they're pro-Palestine for the reason of they want to abolish the Messiah, abolish the state of Israel for the Messiah. And what's the ultimate aim of the Messiah? That they'll retake the land.
Yeah.
So when they
Which
say
land though?
the Israeli land, the land that it's on, it's actually, I think it's bigger than the current proportions. Or maybe I think it's smaller from the south, wider. I'm not exactly sure. So when people say to me, there's Jewish people that are pro-Palestine, and you're saying that it's not about the land. Ultimately, it is about the land, because why are they calling for the destruction of Israel? Because they don't care if it's Palestinians, it could be Russian, it could be Chinese, it could be anything, to move into the country.
But Martin, bear in mind, these are the ones that you've seen online, isn't it? The pro-Palestinian ones.
You can find them,
but there's others.
Right.
That,
So I'm saying on that aspect.
Yeah.
Now, when I say pro-Palestine, I can believe in Jews, and I would say myself a bit. I do feel for people in Palestine. I always think to myself, if I was born in Palestine, in Gaza, right now it would be an awful life. I'm not pretending that things are good. I just don't think that. I think that naturally it's inflated on both sides, the argument, and like I say, I don't see the ability for a long-term solution, and I think that's where people are struggling. There's no one can provide a good long-term solution.
Where do you see this going?
That's the big question, and I don't know. And you know what? It's scary because both sides are suffering. No one's winning. No one's really winning. You want to say one side's suffering more than the other? Again, we can all bring it in our own.
But I think
accounts.
objectively, one can see that one side is suffering more. When it comes to when you just
If
take
you want to go by
numbers,
current numbers and statistics, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. As of now, yes, more Gazans are dying.
Yeah.
However,
even within the last 70 years as well.
I'm not too familiar, but yeah, it is my understanding that more people have died. However,
That's why.
However, there's the age-old, saying that.
What's this age-old saying?
No, it's not a saying. It's just Israel is more developed than Gaza, than a lot of the Muslim countries around it.
Yeah.
Right? So, just because Israel has been killing more people, right, doing a more effective job of clearing out what they call terrorists, right, the numbers don't necessarily mean that there's not a one-sided genocide, as they've been calling it. Because if there's more aggression from one side, and one side is just more capable of neutralizing that threat, you can't really say that they're doing something worse. Because if one side's coming,
But Martin, just because the side is stronger,
yes,
if it is killing more people, it's killing more people. Regardless of whether it's strong, whether it's weak, whether it's in the middle, the numbers are the numbers.
the numbers are the numbers, because if one side, if side A wants to kill 10,000 people on side B, but only manages to kill 5, and side B wants to kill 100 people on side A, but manages to kill all 100, who is the worst? Who is the quote-unquote worst person? You're going to say the 100 people were killed, but the same animosity, or the same I'm not going to say animosity, it's a very harsh word, I understand. The same drive, or help me out, but the same sort of
I don't want to make your argument for you.
No, of course. The same sort of conflict, the drive for conflict, may not be equal on both sides, is what I'm saying. And that shows that the numbers are not necessarily just plus or minus.
But see it like this, Martin. You have a side that's the occupier. Yeah, like you said, it's majority. It's objectively the strongest, got the strongest military, technologically advanced, etc., etc. And then on the other side, you've got the people that are the occupied, the weaker, the less economically developed, and then they keep getting battered, they keep getting killed, and then there's peer-reviewed examples like Operation Cast Lead, Protective Edge, that even the skeptical person can say, you know what, that's ridiculous, that's wrong, that's categorically wrong, and then nothing gets done about it. Yeah, and there's no sanctions. Things get vetoed at the UN. You're right, Martin. Things can't move forward like this when even you've got certain, like I said at the beginning, when you've got even certain nations normalizing, and there doesn't seem to be hope for, like you said, the people that even you see that, you know what, it's not a nice place to be, frankly. Yeah, and when you're there, it is bleak, and you will do anything that you can to survive. And what that looks like, is that good, is that bad? I mean, who can say unless verified information comes, but it's not, yeah, I agree with you, it's not going to improve until especially, like Israel is a democracy, yeah? It's, got a developed army, it's seen as responsible, etc. So it's held to a higher standard than, say, Hamas, yeah? Or say, the others. So if that's not being done, when no sanctions are being placed on them, things are rosy cozy. In fact, there's people from London we're seeing in the Guardian, in other newspapers. Yeah, we're going to join the IDF and help with what's going on. What the hell's going on? You know what I mean? Like, when you can see that there is a conflict taking place in which you have civilians dying, yeah, carpet bombing taking place, a disjunct of force, and you've got other governments allowing people to say, you know what, yeah, if you want to go, that's fine, mate. Yeah, you jump on that plane, off you go, mate, off you pop.
I'm happy to concede on this that in the current, in the last month, I would say from October 8th onwards, correct. There has been obviously Israel is in a much better position right now. There's no doubting that, and there is no currently need to go and assist. Obviously,
this video, I don't think it's going to be good for you. We're talking about serious stuff, I know you want to be famous and everything, but trust me, we're talking about some serious issues. That's why if they see your face, your mum and dad might not be happy, yeah?
So in the current situation, obviously there's been a terrible tragedy in Israel. Gaza, there's been a terrible tragedy, and the recovery from that. There's been a crazy amount of help going on there. So, but besides that, you're right. Israel is now in a position where it's okay temporarily. However, Israel has a long-term goal. They want to prevent what's happened again. I know you can say
and that has to be done responsibly.
And that has to be done.
Responsibly, even for the fate of Israel as well.
Correct, because Israel doesn't want to live in. Israel doesn't want to just go and
And what they're doing now, Martin, seems to only be sealing their fate.
So this is what we're going back on. There isn't a good solution to what they can do and how to do it. If there was an easy, do you know what? If Hamas, I don't know how many, 30,000 of them, came out, stood on the beach and said, let's have a head-to-head fight with Israel, then Israel would stop bombing it, but they can't. I don't think Israel wants to go and bomb civilians.
Would you think that Israel would want to fight them?
What? I believe that if they actually want to come out, I do believe that. And that's what I'm saying. Israel, it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
If it was readily available, Israel would choose the best means. If it's not readily available, there is a grey area. Now, within that grey area, there's extreme and less extreme.
The thing, Martin, is that when you don't value the Gazan civilians as much as your own soldiers, and you're claiming responsibility over that land, and we're doing this, that's where the issue comes in, then you cannot be trusted, and that's where the international community needs to come in. That, in my humble opinion, for whatever it's worth, the international community, the international courts and this and that needs to be taken more seriously, and countries that are enabling whichever side unjustly need to be checked, and this issue does need to be resolved in a more objective way. Do you think that's fair?
I hear that as being fair, but I would just want to add that Israel wants to prevent this from ever happening again. And I agree that if there was international... Look, there's the idea of revenge.
But bro, if Hamas does this, each time something happens, or we're going to prevent this from ever happening again, means that you're going too far. It means you're going beyond the boundary. That's just polite lingo for they're going above and beyond where they should be going. But that's where the issue comes in, Martin.
It's all on a spectrum of where is correct. Where do you draw the line? And that line
and that's where
has never been drawn, and there needs to be a certain.
Yeah.
But the problem is where people agree on that line.
And that's where you need international players to come in. And I don't think
that's acceptable to say that nothing is to be done. It's not acceptable to say that everything should be done, meaning in an aggressive way from the Israeli military.
Yeah, exactly.
It needs to be a good balance.
The
only point that I can truly agree with you is that killing terrorists does not stop creating terrorists, and that is an unfortunate reality on both sides, because it will come to a point where the kids and the kids' will, which is a bit like it is with the tension these days. They will hate. The tension will be caused more from past misdoings, where you forget the original reason why you're fighting. Almost. That's obviously there is real tensions and real disparity between them, but the added layers and layers of destruction and history, it gets to a point where it's not. It becomes too much and less of the original issue.
It is. We just pray. Both of us are obviously believers in God. We pray that this gets resolved soon and fairly as well.
It's ironic, all cousins. We all go
back. Exactly.
So it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's difficult, bro, and it's not nice. It's heart-wrenching to see, innocent Israelis being killed. It's heart-wrenching to see innocent Palestinians being killed. And there's no ifs or buts, there's no qualms about that. And we obviously need to work towards a solution. We hope that we can, without inflaming tensions and making the situation worse, like certain people are doing.
I pray that a feasible solution comes around where everyone feels just and long term can actually be sorted.
Martin,
Thank you very much. It's been an honour.
thank you.
What was
The
your
honour's
name,
mine.
sorry,
Zeeshan.
again? Zeeshan. Nice to meet
Pleased
you.
to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Abdul Kareem.
Can we get a picture with you?
Sorry?
Can we get a picture?
Come on,
we have
let's
a
do it.
picture?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it. Still.
Picture.
MashaAllah.